Hey everybody, back again. We have Brad Linder for Brad Linder Creating Comics and the Daily Card Show. So we're going to be doing pretty close to midnight here with a late session. We've got Namor, the Submariner, and we have the Human Torch over here. We're going to at least get Namor fleshed out, and hopefully we'll finish up the Torch. If not, I'll come back in a second session after midnight and do this one. But I'm going to take about the next 20, 30 minutes and plug away at this and see if we can finish it up. If not, then I'll come back after midnight for tomorrow's show and go ahead and finish this out so we can have the page and see where we go. But anyway, give me just a second to share this over with the page so that we can share with the channel. And we are going to knock this bad boy out. So bear with me just a second. And there we go. We have the page. And now we have the channel. And we are good to go. So I'm going to be coloring this one out and grab a couple colors here real quick. Boom, boom, boom. Where's everything? There we go. Cool. All right. Now, I'm going to start off with what they call a skin white, which is an E00 for Namor, because of the fact that he is a lighter colored guy because he doesn't get a lot of sun. Some people like to do him a dark tan, but I prefer to do him a very light, very, very pale skin color, because the classic Submariner book always had him as a pale character because he was under the ocean, you know, and didn't get the radiation and all that. The ocean water filtered it out, so he didn't get that aquatic color by any other way than being under the water rather than coming up and getting vitamin D exposure like a human would and getting a tan. So, you know, for the beach tone type of guy they make him with the ocean, they didn't do him like they did Aquaman, where Aquaman had a much darker beach boy type complexion, and especially the new Jason Momoa version of it, for their Aquaman for the superstars of the Justice League, and they tried to, you know, tattoo him up and all that, and I mean, it's cool, but I mean, I like the character and I love the actor. He's an awesome dude, but Submariner's just got a special place for me because I just dig this character. He's more realistic as the superhero genre goes than Aquaman. You know, I mean, maybe Momoa's character will toughen him up a little bit, but even to that extent, it's just not the same. They don't even have the same class of level of character. You know, there's few that do back and forth, you know, that compare, but these two head to head, the Submariner would crush him, no question about it. That's just my personal geek opinion. So, but if you disagree, that's fine. Do that, but you have that right to that, you know. But for me, it's all about the class and type of the character, and this character has it definitely across the board. So, can you tell I'm a fan? Just maybe, just a little bit, just a little. But as you can see, the skin tone's coming in, and it's looking really, really cool because this is a smooth color. I like to use this color on Caucasian women because it's got that softer, you know, that softer, lighter, rosy type complexion to it, rather than getting all hardcore, you know, a little darker like Cap, who's been in the sun and been exposed to the elements and such, which is a little bit different. So, but you know, to each their own, of course. So, and the way I drew him here, unfortunately, he looks like he's in the buff. You know, you can't see his green Speedo with the gold belt. So that makes things a little interesting. But hey, it is what it is. So just trying not to go over the ink too much, just in case I have any pockets of graphite I may have missed, which would tamper with the color tone of this character, and I want to keep him very clean. So I made sure to erase it very well, but you know, you never know how it's going to go out until it's done. But you got to be in the experience of the moment and do the job and make it happen. So that's what we're doing right now to make that come together. So I've got these eyes here, keeping them very clean. Going to come in with some cool brown and tone those up. And these will be gold. They will be yellow, orange, and maybe a little bronzer or something of that element. I'm not sure yet. You know, we'll see what goes on. But I'm hoping it looks like that. Something to represent that element in color. But we'll see. So I'm going to map this out. Get in these knuckles here. And we've got it mapped out already with the flesh tone. That's going to be awesome. Now I'm going to start in on these gauntlets and let that set for a bit before we go off and get crazy with the other couple of tones in here. Because I just kind of want to keep it level and let it dry nice and even first. And then I'm going to go in and color the rest of this a little bit to make that happen. So boom, there we go. I have a really cool dark blue here, which I'm going in on the hair. I know a lot of people freak out about that, but I like to do the classic blue for hair like this when it's jet black, either a purple, a blue, or even a dark gray on occasion, but I'm kind of staying away from that. I don't like using browns on this because it doesn't translate quite as well as the classic feel of the blue. You know, and I mean, unless it's like a close-up where you want it brown. But with jet black hair, I tend to even do that anyway. But, hey, Jeremy, glad you made it, man. Steve, awesome. Hi, Rose. I think this is the first time you've been on. That, to answer your question, that is Submariner. He's from Marvel. Let's see here. I'm gonna go with grabbing my gold here. Go off camera for a sec to grab the right colors because I don't have them at the desk. Totally slacking. I apologize. And we need. I'm moving my Copic cases, as you can hear probably, to get these done. I just want to make sure we have the right colors and right tones. There we go. Cool. Got those. Sorry about that. Hey, Travis. Let's see here what we can do. Move the good old eraser there. And I'm going to start off with a Y15 because I really, really like this color. It has a rich color to it, a rich warm yellow. Gonna go right in here with this as the base. And I don't like doing white highlights on these things. I like to do them as the original Silver Age type of character colors that they had. So I'm mapping them out like that. And then we'll come in with some oranges and a couple of alternative darker yellows to change things up, to give it that gold shiny look like it's supposed to have. And I might come in with a white gel pen later, but like I said, I'm not big on that, and I didn't want to do that with the gauntlets on Submariner because I had to do that with Cap's shield too, and I'd really rather not. So I'm kind of being cautious with that because I don't want to come in and just swamp this thing and then have to do all these weird color gradations and make it look weird, you know, as it goes along. Because we can do a really cool yellow highlight here and then touch it with some orange to bronze it a little bit better and bring some warmth to it and go from there. But I'm trying to keep it as golden or Silver Age in tone as possible, even though I have a more contemporary cartoony style to my artwork. So that's the reason why we're doing it that way. I have this really cool Y38, which I love this color because this is going to be that bright orangey yellow that's going to kind of make it have more of a metallic shine to it when it dries. And it'll warm it up just a little bit to give it that gold look. Now I know this looks a little forced, and when it dries it'll look better. But I'm going to let that set for a second. I'm going to grab my E13 here and go in for these eyes. Hopefully I won't black them out, because this brush tip is not as fine as a lot of these things are. There we go, cool deal. That came out a lot better than I thought. Now this only takes a couple of seconds to set, so we shouldn't have too much of a problem. I'm going to go in here and get this knocked out. I'm going from the E00 to the E11. And the reason we're going to do that is because I'm going to pull this all together really quickly without him getting, like I said, an overkill Beach Boy tan, because it just doesn't look right on this character, especially in this design. I mean, you know, and I found out that more in recent years they've gone even lighter, which cracks me up, because they've gone even lighter in tone once he came out in the costumes. You know, the black suit, the leggings at one point, the green leggings that he had at one point, because he did that shirtless, you know, that shirtless look for a little bit, where he wore pants instead, which I found fascinating. And then he came out with this weird black and yellow revamped suit in the 90s, and they tried to bring him back that way and update him a little bit, and I don't know, I don't know, it just didn't resonate with me. I've always dug this character, and when they put him back in his classic costume of the green Speedo with the gold belt, I loved it. It was just classic comics all over again. And besides, you know, why wouldn't you? You know, it was like they were trying to compete with the new Aquaman after he lost his, you know, they took Aquaman's hand and gave him the morphing metal hook and all that mess, and it was a strange time. You know, this character's gone through some strange revamps and transitions, and it's just weird sometimes how, you know, things work out the way they do or they don't. But they did the same thing when they tried to change Spider-Man's costume a couple times, you know, and revamp him and whatnot. And, you know, I could live with it or live without it. You're either a fan of it or you're not. And in this case, I was not. Absolutely not. I like the original, and I wanted it left alone. But whatever. It's not my call. It's above my pay grade still. At least where Marvel's concerned anyway. So, whatever. But I get to draw this character now, and I get to draw him the way I want to draw him. So, kudos to that. And I'm kind of popping this in, defining these shadows and shades just a little bit. Got that big old bicep muscle up there. A little bit on my elbow, a little bit of tricep back here, which I'm not going to divide in that particular case. Got some knuckle light action going on here, and here. I tend to lean it towards one side or the other. I don't like to just swamp it. Trying to leave a little bit of a highlight around the edges. Up high on the abadabas there, leave them in the center light, catch the bottom of the rib, and there we go. Now we're gonna kind of darken out this one side. I'm gonna do the majority of this leg, and the reason I'm gonna do that is because you're gonna get a little bit of highlight from the bottom and on the inside, but not much. You know, coming down from across this way, but not much at all. So, gonna kind of darken that up a little bit, blacken out that knee, cool, and deal. I'm gonna put a little bit more on this side, like that. Now I'm going to go in with just a little bit of this E13, just a little bit again, and put in some dark touches here and there to kind of balance it out and give it that third dimensional hue, as it were, giving some deep shadows without shadowing this stuff out too much. Just kind of hinting at it in places and moving on, because that's going to be about it. I don't want to play with this too much, because then it ends up getting oversaturated, and then we end up, you know, with 20 different shades and all that going on, and it makes a mess of it. It really does. Now notice I left that little highlight right in there at the bottom, and the reason I did that is because, like I said, I want to make this have a highlight from underneath as well. So if you make the highlight coming up this way, it's got to come up here too, because that's a separate muscle and it's tilted up and back. So you're going to catch that bottom ridge right there. So got to make sure it counts. Got to make sure. And pop in some color here. Just a little bit down there. A little bit under that. Okay, stop that there. Stop that there. Now, this is coming along really well. I'm happy with this. Just a little bit darker where it's down under his torso. And that'll dry pretty smooth, so we'll have that. There we go. A little bit on the foot. Just a little bit on the inside of the thigh there. Right up under the rib cage. Right down the middle. Over here. And just a little bit across the chin just to balance it out. The only reason I'm doing it on the face at all is because I want to balance out the color along the way here. So catch alongside those mandibles, up on the cheekbones, a little bit on the underside of the eye, just a little. And that's it right there into the bridge. Boom, done. Cool and deal. Okay, cool. There he is right there. That's Namer. We've got Submariner done. Awesome. Now I'm going to switch over to the torch, and this character's a little bit different. Okay, so because he's classic, I'm going to go ahead and color this out, but because he's a classic character, I like to go in with a simple red and just hammer it out, be done with it. Okay, now I'm going to start him off with a light red, and this is going to look a little weird at first, but this is the way we're going to do this. We're going to start out with yellow, a dark yellow, an orange, and then I'm going to go into the red. So I try to do something like this R35, and it's coral red, and it's got a little bit brighter, pinker tone to it. So let me grab the oranges real quick, and we'll get started on this one. Let's see. There we go. Bright one. And where are you? There you are. Cool deal. Okay. Now I've got here for you a YR04, YR16, a Y38, a YR68, and a fluorescent orange, which is actually, it's called fluorescent orange, but it's a fluorescent yellow red one, which is going to be the highest orange that we have. So I'm going to go straight in with this one as the base yellow. And the reason I want to use this fluorescent is because of the fact that, like I said, when the red dries on top of it, it will show through and it will be really intense. And this is one of my favorite pens because for doing fire, there's nothing better. It's great. because the original torch didn't have the orange and yellow hues that the Human Torch has now. The Johnny Storm character has, because and if it goes over, that's okay, because there's flame all around him, so no biggie, because it's going to be in the flame as well. So I just bit a big streak right outside the line there, but that's okay. Now I like to use this, like I said, because it builds up fire color really, really easy, and it gives off that that yellow flame. Very cool and a very solid look. It works, it works, it works. So I'm just kind of base coloring this one, just like I did Submariner with the 00, the E00. I'm coating out the torch here, and it's okay to go across this ink because this ink is India ink from my micron pins, so I don't have to worry about that. The exterior ink is solid. It's a high-end gel ink, so I don't have to worry about that from, you know, those pins from my pilots. And I erased the bejesus out of this thing before I started, so there should not be any graphite. Don't hold me to that. You never know when it's going to get nasty, but for the most part, hopefully we got that covered. Now, I'm going to go ahead and color this out. People are going to be looking at me like, what is wrong with you? They're going to be watching this and trying to figure out what's going on. Why are you coloring the torch orange? Like I said, the brighter you get your base coat, the brighter the color will shine when you detail it out. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but this character will pop. Believe that. This character will pop. Because when most people draw the torch, specifically this version of the torch, they go off and draw the flames coming off of him like this all the way around, and then they come in and color him red from the center, and then they render the flame from the outside. They'll render this flame with yellow, orange, and whatnot to make it look like it has a gradient of heat. And I don't like to do that, because then he looks like a big red sausage sticking in the middle of this thing, and it doesn't look good to me. Yes, that was the original way he was drawn. Yes, that's the way they did Johnny Storm for years. But like I said, I prefer not to do that, because we have the ability to draw so many different variations and key elements to any image that we want to draw. And like I said, I want him to look like he's producing the heat, not that he's at the center of it, engulfed by it. And there's the difference. Okay? There's a huge difference there. So with that said, we've got one down. And now I'm going to go back in with this Y17. There it is. And it's a much warmer yellow. I'm going to start the flame out on this side with this warmer yellow. And if it goes back across the edge of him, it's no big deal, because he's going to be colored engulfed in flame anyway. So it's not going to matter. Unless I go outside of the flame like that. Whoops. So now I'll have to correct that, which I'll show you guys how to do that in a second. We can mod that after it dries. It's like, you missed. But, oh well. It happens. I'm an aggressive painter, what can I say? I like painting, and when I use these, I really don't care, because I can go behind and touch all that up with just a little bit of line work. Not a biggie. I can take the 0.05, which is a half, or a Pigma 005. Okay, it's a true half point. It's a tiny little sucker, and that's what I line this flame with. So I can go back in and just outline that real quick wherever I go over, and just add a little bit of flame coverage. No biggie. Seriously, no biggie. It's just comics. I don't get all intense about it, you know. And the guys that used to use the old paint pens or the water brush pens or watercolors when they painted comics, they used to do that all the time. They used to just go outside the line, wherever it happened, and they just left it. And I mean, I don't want to do that because I'm a little more prone about it, you know, of being proactive and not leaving it a mess. But sometimes that's what they had to do, you know. Of course, painting at 3 or 4 in the morning will do that to a person. They'll be like, "Oh, screw it," and they'll turn it. They'll turn it in. They'll be like, "Oh man, I don't care. What are you gonna do? Fire me?" So I like leaving the raw edges. As a matter of fact, I've got enough of them now. I just may leave them anyway. So, because this is more of a guideline rather than a principle must have. Of course, you should stay in the lines as much as possible, but you know, this is a sketch card piece, you know, as far as this show goes, so I don't really have to go by those guidelines. I can have a little more fun with it, and if I dab over, I don't think anybody's going to cry. So, at least I hope not. I mean, there may be a couple of guys that start squawking, you know, "You went outside the lines." Yeah. I'm not that restricted about it. I mean, it's not like I went over on the skin or anything, so whatever. But we will knock it out, as always, and get this bad boy done. And now we have almost half of the flame done, the lower part. Trying to dabble in here in these fine points and not go crazy. Okay, I'm going to flip my tip now. There we go. Get a little more refinement because I'm going over too much for my personal taste. So flipped it over. And anyway, gonna be going in and coloring this guy up with an orange next to go in and try to warm this back up. And I know, like I said, this kind of coloring freaks people out. But in the miniseries they did a 4 or 6 issue miniseries on the original Torch, and it cracked me up to no end because what they did was they colored him solid red and then put orange flames around him, and that was it. And I mean, it had orange and yellow color streaking through it, and that was the end of it, man. I mean, they just left it, and it was just like whatever came out, came out. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to simulate flame with paint, you know, like I'm doing here now with pins. And they pulled it off for the most part. I enjoyed the look. I don't think it's a problem, but I enjoyed the book, definitely. It was great to see that character come back, but I don't think it was necessarily anything groundbreaking. So they just covered the basics. So we're going to try and do a little more than that, but we shall see what happens next. So bear with me here as trouble ensues. So, because we will see what's going to happen with this thing. The drama, we can't stand the intensity. It's overwhelming. Whatever. It's late, having fun. So, let's talk about making comics. How about that? What do you guys like to see when you read comics, and especially independent stuff these days? Because that's pretty much where it's at with creativity. I mean, it's like the late 70s, early 80s all over again, with the boom of independent comics coming out because the mainstream materials swamped the market and left fans hanging with a little bit of a dip on story, content, and artwork. It's just a little low. And I want to find out what you guys think about it. What is your favorite independent comic right now? And what do you guys like to see in comics when they come out? Is it art? Is it story? Is it combination of balance of both? Which that's what it is for me personally. I think it's just something that has to be worked at and pushed through. And so many people don't like to do that because they would rather just kick it out and go. And I'm kind of about that. Now I'm going to go over with the first orange here, and then we'll get back into that topic. But I'm going to go over with a Y38, which is a honey color. And this is a really, really bold, warm orange. Okay. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go around this outline and kind of venom color this character. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to show these hot spots, and I want them to really pop up. So that's the reason we're doing that. So, but when I'm creating comics, I think about the storyline first. I mean, it's always story for me first. Then it's artwork to represent the story the best way possible. And then after that, it's got to be content and continuity. You know, you got to give me a story that I can bond with. And that's why Disney is so popular and always has been with every movie they've done and everything before comics came along with the comic content that they're doing from, you know, Marvel. They were always top notch, and everybody was Disney fans because of the fact that they came in and just owned it. And I mean, they owned everything. And it's because of the fact that they made it an experience. That's the biggest commercial that you pay for. It's a word of mouth advertising that you pay for. You pay for it. You pay for it. You pay to watch that movie, have that experience, and then walk around and tell everybody, hey, guess what I saw? Have you seen the new Disney movie? Have you seen the new Marvel movie? You want to talk about something cool, man. You make everybody have an experience with it that they run around and tell all their friends, and then they buy all the stuff and wear the t-shirts and wear the brand like that. And, you know, that's the same thing AMC is doing right now. They follow the Disney philosophy on that with Kirkman's Walking Dead. You know, they nailed it. And it's one of the biggest shows on television, not just cable, but any television, you know, public broadcast or commercial cable. It's just crazy. And the reason they do that and they resonate with you so well is because of the fact that they give you stories that you can bond with. And comics should be the same way. Comics were the same way for a long time, you know, because it was in comics, you were either Marvel, DC, or, you know, you could be fans of independents as well when they came out. But you, in the main brands, you were either comic fans of Marvel or DC. And then it got okay to be, you know, bonded with both of them. Of course, everybody was reading everybody's comics, but it was always a favorite character debate, you know, of who was the best comic character, period. And that's where the actual debate came from for comics was, you know, Marvel versus DC. Is it, you know, Batman or Punisher? Is it Spider-Man or, you know, Superman or, you know, whatever they had going at the moment? And that's what people resonate with and they bond over. It's because we got to be a community about it and talk in the fandoms, you know. But what they would do was they would take it and go, okay, this is the way it's going to be made, and this is what's going to happen. And, you know, when you had a character pass off or go rogue or die or change or mutate or change a costume, it would freak you out, man. It would really freak you out. And the reason would be because you had those experiences. Same thing in the movies when they screw a character over and say, okay, this character's got to die. You're like, what? Where'd that character go? Put him back, put him back. And then you're all freaked out about it. And everybody's whining and crying. And, you know, they're laughing all the way to the bank. Ha, ha, ha. And the reason they do is because of the fact that they can, you know. And nobody says a word about it as far as that goes. They just say, okay, no biggie. You know, we'll bring him back in the sequel. He's not dead. It's like a soap opera. We'll bring him back. Fans are complaining too much. Got to bring him back. So nothing's impossible in comics, just like it's not in soap operas. You know, when I was a kid, the women in my family would watch soap operas in the afternoon, you know, and send us outside to play and whatnot when I was little, and we became latchkey kids later when everybody had to work because of the economy changes. But you know, for the most part, it was uh, those once in a while moments where you had, you know, the grown ups freaking out over, oh no, Robert Scorpio's doomed, or you know, somebody's picked up by a vampire, or in Port Charles, or an alien, you know, in General Hospital or whatever, when they got later in the 90s and got weird. But somebody would die and then all of a sudden they'd be back in a coma and not know who they were and have 6 months of, you know, therapy or whatever. And yes, I'm a guy and I know about these things. And I actually enjoyed the fact of watching them in my teenage years because of the fact that I got to learn about how television story writing works. And you know, these things have been around. Everybody thinks that they're lame, but think about them. They've been around since the 50s and 60s, the 1950s and 60s to everybody that's under 25. You know, the last century, and that's an intense thing, man. When you think about it, nobody thinks about that stuff. That's a really intense thing when you think about it. So, you know, you can learn a lot from doing stuff like that, watching those shows. And there's only a couple of them on now, but man, they would come in and just tear it up. Comics, same way. When I grew up with the comics of the 70s and 80s, man, when I was little, I used to love comic books, and I got to read a lot of stuff, you know, that most people didn't. But it was just, I tell you, it was one of those things that I really connected with, writing and art and storytelling, by watching and reading those old comics, because of the fact that you got to watch that stuff. And the cartoons of the 60s reflected that. If you check out the old Hanna-Barbera Marvel cartoons, they will blow your mind. When you watch those old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, their own line of superheroes, and then you watch things like, you know, the Fantastic Four and Thor, Submariner, those type of cartoons, the Spider-Man cartoon, back from the day, man, it was crazy stuff. And they went right from the pages of the comics because they wanted to keep the continuity, and they managed what happened, and they based it off of the stories that existed from the comics in a mandatory form of the Marvel Magic method. And when you have that kind of styling, you end up getting that great feel for it. You know, Superman, Batman, you know, Wonder Woman, the DC stuff was always stylized in the patriotic form. Okay, they had their Boy Scout, what I call the Boy Scout model, and what they would do is they would go in and give you, you know, Wonder Woman, da 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 da, Superman, da 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 da, Batman, you know, da 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 da, and then Bam and Boof, of course, because of the spoof stuff in the '60s, and you know, Linda Carter is Wonder Woman. All the guys out there, yeah, you know, that was the iconic vision of Wonder Woman. She was fantastic. And not just idolized in a physical, you know, manner. She was idolized because she had all of the qualities that Wonder Woman had, and everybody just could look at her in an instant and go, "Wow, that's Wonder Woman," you know. And then there are other incarnations of it as well. But and don't get me wrong, Gal Gadot doing it today is really, really solid as well. She's got that same persona kind of thing going on, where it's really, really engulfed in the patriotism of the character. So, you know, it's one of those things where it really comes out and comes to life, and it's really impressive to see that. However, like I say, though, to each their own, as far as that goes, but there's always somebody trying to come in a little bit different, you know, and change things up. And in comics, we have to find our own voice, but yet we get lost in the fact of who's creating the comic these days, and more about the hype of the stars involved rather than the material necessarily of the comic book. And that's disturbing to me. That's greatly disturbing, because then people like me, you know, and I'm nobody as far as comics go, but you know, in comparison to the old guard, you know, Sal Buscema, John Buscema, Bill Everett, Wally Wood, Roy Thomas is out there somewhere hiding out. You know, there's so many of these guys that are out there, and it's just heartbreaking to see how all of it comes together and then to pass. And you know, so many of these greats are getting blown off for the work that they did back then, but then in consideration of the modern transition, everybody's trying to find a new market, and they're saying that the old way doesn't work anymore. But the thing is the old way is what worked for 50 years, and the characters just haven't grown. They've been revamping the stories in an isolated universe instead of building them out the way they should be. I mean, it's not about changing the character, okay? It's not about the status quo of equality on the character. It's about growing the characters and growing the universe and expanding into other ethnicities and races and all that good stuff that we need balance for, which I totally agree on. But you don't have to kill 50 years of legacy and destroy it just to make it popular. I mean, seriously, that doesn't work. And then you've got these knuckleheads that want to come off and, you know, just say, well, you know, it's time for a change, and then drop 50 years of legacy and rewarp it. I mean, you got to modernize the contemporary origin for the medium. I understand that, and I've accepted that. That's fine for like the movie universe and whatnot, because some of the stuff on comics doesn't work on film, and I totally understand and get that. I mean, you know, spandex, speedos, that kind of thing, and some of the origins just don't translate properly, and they need to be updated. I get that. But why destroy the original source material to do that? That's what bothers me. So if you're creating comics, the one thing you need to focus on is the story, and then the continuity and consistency, and build it like it's your own television show or your own network of movies and studio type of situations, to where you build this stuff out and it has a life of its own, where it's not only self-contained, but it can last through the generations, which nobody does anymore. Nobody accounts for, and I don't like that. I'm a big advocate for that part of the business coming back to the legacy line, and I'm working with a lot of classic artists because of that, and I want to get, you know, classic writers too, because I want to get that done. But anyway, I'm going to grab a couple of stronger reds here to beef this guy up before I get into the other part of it, which is the flame. I don't want to mess with that just yet. So now I'm just beefing this up, like I said. I've got 4 or 5 different reds in here, and oranges in here, and yellows in here and stuff. I just want to beef this up just a little more. So, and someone was talking with me right before I came on live, and they said I had a kind of a Art Thibert thing going on here, or, you know, a couple of other references they made, and I was just like, wow, thank you. I really dig that. But just kind of digging at it here and getting this bad boy summed up and underway here. And like I said, as I go deeper in these reds, I'm going to beef them up for the center portions and get down and down and down and down until we're where we're at. Okay? And I mean, this is starting to pop off, and I'm really digging it. But like I said, I want to make sure it all comes up and comes out clean. And I don't like I said, I don't want to leave him solid red in the core. Just looks odd to me. I mean, I understand that that's the traditional way to do it, but with contemporary styles and stuff, I don't see the reason for going in and, you know, just mopping up with a solid red and copying out to it when we can have such beautiful tonality and scale. So there we go. Now I'm going in with a 46, which is a strong red. It's an R46. Hey, Brian. Good to see you on, man. So I'm going in with this really dark red now. The strong R46 is it's called strong red, and it's about the darkest red that you can get on here without going into the purple or brown hues. So I really, really dig this one. I'm going to let this set for a second. And once this is done, And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit darker, which is more of a violet color. It's an RV19, which I like to put it right at the core when I do characters like this, because what it does is it pops it out even more and gives it kind of a purple hue. So it gets really, really hot in the core, like it's burning from the inside out. And then as you get to the edges, it's where the heat's dispersing, so it's hot. So that's what we're going to get. You guys may hear a mousy squeak on here now. It's my marker because the page is wet. So that's always funny. But I'm beefing it up here, like I said. And this does have gradations to it, so it's going in just little by little. And we're beefing it up and making it stick. So I'm really, really happy with this. There we go. Cool deal. Put a little more on that ear. A little more on that ear. There we go. Now I'm going to give that a few minutes to set. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go back into this this fire here, this flame behind him, because this back here is a fire trail, okay? So what we want to do is we want to come in from the inside out. When you build up flame like this, you have to do it very sensitively, okay? Because the hottest edges and the lightest colored edges are always on the outside. And if you do these crests for these trails, you put the warm spots in the middle like that, and the hot spots out on the edge. So the closer to the edge it's going to get, the higher yellow or the higher blue or white, depending on the generation of flame and the core elements that are burning, it's going to burn a little bit hotter towards the outside edge because that's where the hottest part is. Okay? Because it's going to get thinner and it's going to get hotter as it goes out. That's why the tips of a flame are the hottest, because it gets the most oxygen because it's the most thin. So there's less fuel, more oxygen, so it burns up quicker and burns up lighter and gets lighter in color. So that's why we have that going on and where we're at. So we're going to peek this out just a little bit, like I said, with these yellows and this orange in here, which is awesome. Just little dabs here and there to show some cooler spots, especially right up against him. And then we're going to have this come out and build up as well. I'm going to build it up a little bit darker on these spots and work it down and tone it in. So we're going to have some really cool looking flame here pretty quick. And fire is one of my favorite things to do. I love drawing fire, so this is going to be a fun one and be super easy. Kind of zigzagging this a little bit to match up the core feel of the flame here, right up to the tip of the page, and slimming that down. So there we go. Now we have that gradation. Now I'm going to come in with the Y37. No, I'm going to go with the Y17 actually. I'm going to put this in various spots here and there because this is going to be a spot yellow. Okay. Just going to kind of grade this in like this and make it a little weird now and again because it's got a little bit redder tone to it, but not much. It's just a little bit darker. So I'm adding to that flare sometime here and there. And you want to add a couple of yellows in and a couple of oranges in as you build flame up, especially if it's an orange yellow type of flame like this, because when you build it up, it'll add different contrast and add a different richness and level to it because you're adding in multiple levels of yellow. And the more gradients you get in there, it makes the eye respond differently, so that when you're coloring it, it looks like, wow, man, what did they do in there? And you're trying to figure it out and see what's going on and whatnot. And if you've got a couple of different gradients, it really, really, really makes it pop. So now I'm going to go in with this this YR16, which is an apricot color. And this is going to be one of the darker oranges that I put in the flame here. Like I said, just contrasting just a little bit. Don't over engulf this with this dark stuff. You want to keep it close to the skin, close to the core, and leave it alone at that. You don't want to go crazy with this one, because this is going to be where it's going to get weird and it'll wash out on you and wash all together and not look right. Because the hotter he burns on the outside, you don't want to have a lot of dark hues in there, because then it'll pop out and, you know, it'll look waterlogged or too cold. So we're getting right up against the skin here, just putting in a couple of bases like this. I'm not going to put too many of these out in the exterior flames. I'm just going to leave this alone. Kind of put a couple of spots like that so it shows up. And that, I mean, that is literally it. Boom, done deal. Now I'm going to walk down this trail. Just put a couple of spots in there to kind of shake things up a little bit. But other than that, leave it alone, because if you go in, like I said, you'll start messing it up if you put too much of a dark tone in there. And now we have the YR68, which is a true orange. And like I said, this is the cream of the crop here. This is the dark literal orange that you'll see just in specks right along the edge of the skin, just here and there. And I mean, that is it. Just boom, boom, boom. Moving on. Little specks, little dots. And that's it. Because this makes it look like the flame is generating from him in these darker points, because that's where it peaks off of his skin. And like I said, we always want him to look like he's generating it, not engulfed in it. Big difference. Big difference. You want to do this with any character. Flaming Skulls, Ghost Rider, big deal there. You know, that kind of thing. Now, I'm going to go in with this coral again, which is this softer, lighter red. And I'm going to go right at the deep points. Boom. Just a hot spot. And it's got to be right against the skin. It can't be anywhere else. And if it goes back over the line of his skin, big deal. Just make it look rough like flame. And if it looks like it's walking over, no biggie. Because it's coming off of him anyway. So if it goes back and forth through the ink line, that's okay. It really is. A lot of people freak out. It's crossing the line. It's crossing the line. Yeah, it's crossing the line. It's coming off of him. You want it to look engulfed, make it go over a little bit. So it has that engulfed look, like it's coming off of his flesh, and I guarantee you, it makes a whole different level of game change. Okay, go around here. I'm gonna do a little more off the top of his head here, and there we go. That's all it takes. That hottest, you know, that darkest red in there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this violet, and like I said, I'm just going to put this right in the core spots. And as you can tell, it's just going to get a little bit richer, darker right in there. And that's all we're going to do right at the spot. Boom, done. No biggie. Just at the hot spots, where the deepest shadows of the flesh are. That's it, right there. And you don't want to mess this up too much, because then you'll make him look like a big purple piece of meat, and it'll look weird. He'll look like a raw steak, and that's strange. You'll be looking at him, and he's like, wow, that's hot. And then you'll get up close, and they'll be like, ooh. So, right in the center of that, right in the center of this, and so on. And I mean, just barely do it and get out. Don't play around. Don't overwork it. You know, I'm putting in real light here towards the eyes, because I want the eyes to be sunk in a little bit to give them a little more life. And I'm going to leave that nose ridge open and get in on this side, right up under here like that, down by this wrist, on the fingers there, down on the foot, and do the abs just a little bit more. Now I'm going to take this, if it's handy, now to warm this up a little bit more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this R39, which is a little bit darker. It's that garnet color. And this is going to be, now this is crucial. You have to be very cautious about this. Put it in right over these lines in the dark spots, you know, the fire lines, just in the darkest points, because this one is going to be really, really red. And this one is going to make him pop, 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 pop. Okay. Just the smallest bit, because this is going to be the dark point. Just the center of these abs, nothing else. Grab the ribs there. Okay. Grab these chest muscles, grab those pecs. Right at the core of the arm, right at the core of the arm. Kind of flesh that out a little bit because I wrapped that tip there and caught a dot. Don't want to do that. Now, we do not want to do any of this in the flame outside, because if you do, it will mess it up. It will kill the color. But if you do it at the deep shadows, the prime points, it'll make him look supercharged hot. We're talking like the surface of the sun, you know, 4,000 degrees, 5,000 degrees, which is a critical point for something on, you know, Earth. But there we go. Cool deal. Now he's got that going on. I think he looks solid. Now I'm going to go back in and use the True Orange yet again, because I want to add just a little bit of this back here in the trail. Kind of like it's cooling down a little. And then we are set. I am not going to do any more to the torch there. I hope you guys dig it. That is it. We have Captain America down here, right there, boom. We have, and he's a full figure, by the way. We have Captain America right there. We have Submariner over here, and we have the Human Torch, the original Human Torch, as the Invaders original team. I hope you guys dig this thing. I had a blast doing it. I am going to be working on this for the next little bit. And like I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. I'm probably going to black it out. I just have this thing where I just want to black this out and run with it. But we'll see how it goes, because I'm going to work on graying around this. And I don't know exactly what we're going to do with the aspect of it yet, but we're going to see. Also, you see that right there? I'm going to have to white around that. That's an accident. That's live art, folks. That's live art right there. I'm going to have to white out around that, because I'll have to gel pen line it no matter what, because that won't come out of the page. But I've got a couple of other spots on here that's speckled as well from ink splatter and whatnot as we go along. So I'm going to fix those, and we're going to go for it. So anyway, love that you guys hanging around with me on the weekend. Thank you so much for checking this one out. It is great. I'm going to grab a gel pen and some white out and fix this page up after I decide what I'm going to color it, and go from there. And I will talk to you tomorrow. As always, you know how this goes. We've got this rock for a limited amount of time. We've got it for the next little bit. Let's make it good for the next generation so they can party too. Talk to you tomorrow.